As mentioned before, just a few general questions, and then if we can have some separates for the television. So I'll leave it over to you people.
No. Right then. What think we so far?
You'll be playing mostly outdoor dates in Australia. How do you feel about that?
It's great actually. If the organisation's good backstage, you know, but we sometimes get problems outside.
You've got a very sophisticated light show. It's going to pose problems, isn't it?
That's not really the problems you get. It's more on the equipment, the amplifiers and stuff like that you get the problems with. But
with the laser show, do you have any problems there?
No, not so far. It's been really good so far.
We've heard a lot about the laser light show. Could you tell us how it features in your show?
Yeah, it's on.
It's something we started doing about 2 or 3 years ago, just about that. And it's just a play on the name of the band, really, Electric Light Orchestra. So we play the light part of it up a bit. There's a very extensive light show. There's a big laser show as well, which is featured almost throughout the show, or mostly 6 or 7 times. If you've never seen it before, it's just impossible to explain, I'm afraid. You just have to come and see it. It's magic.
How many bands are there using a laser show? Are you the only one?
No, there are other bands, but in all modesty, I believe ours is the best.
Yeah, well, yours is the first we've seen out here.
Very modest.
Yes.
Tremendously modest.
Is it dangerous at all? The light show?
Yeah, only in the wrong hands, and our people that are in charge of ours are very skilled.
Yeah, but how could it be dangerous though?
It's only dangerous to the operators, people that actually, where the source of the laser itself.
Yeah.
If you were to put your head in the box and I'm looking into it, you know, it'd probably burn a hole right through your skull, but otherwise it's perfectly harmless.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it do that?
There's
You're a
no
nasty
harm in
headache?
receiving the ray.
No.
Unless it's who said that?
You also talked about start elaborate light shows we've been out here in some of the sin. How important are special effects to bands in general these days?
Well, I think the sort of venues that we play nowadays, really big open-air venues and big stadiums, it's really important because the people at the back, don't have a very good view of the people on the stage. They certainly can't see facial expressions and stuff like that. So for them, they get a better deal in one way because they get an overall effect of the whole light show, which is nice.
It says in the handout that it took you a time to convince you to wear glasses when you were using the laser because it was potentially dangerous to your eye.
2 1 2 1 1. 1 2 1 2.
You were nearly as bad. You would have nodded off.
Oh, I was nodding out there.
I was asleep in the arms.
There would be 6 members. I thought 2 or 3 you're going to kill over
I was waiting for somebody to do the walking backwards bit into the swimming pool.
Holding down the railing.
Can I just sort of join in on this? With the microphone open. Oh, really? This is the bit that's interesting, to our listeners. What, do you think it's getting out of control at all, the size of these things?
No,
not yet. It seems to be well under control, provided the sound systems and everything can cope.
Do you mean this reception or?
Oh, well, yeah, that's part of the course, I reckon. No, I just mean every time a band comes to Sydney that's got a big act and expects, a lot of people to turn up, the press always asks them, there's 75,000 people going to come here to see this, you're going to be X thousand feet away. What do you feel about it? And Alice Cooper was here last year and said the same thing. Well, we do a show that's times 10 size so that people at the back can see it. It's designed for these open-air situations. Yeah. But there's a lot of... the state government in Sydney, in New South Wales, was a bit worried about the people not getting the value for money for these things. So I think that's what's behind...
The alternatives around things like
well, that's what I mean. How do you see the future of it? I mean, do you get bigger and bigger and bigger, or do you have to somehow scale your operations down when you reach an optimum? I know it's a crazy question, but
up to some degree, you can cope. We can cope very easily with it by just being somehow sort of acting bigger on stage in a way. Making your sort of performance bigger, somehow. So that, and also you've got to sort of project over it. It's fine. It's great fun to play to the people right in front of the stage, and eye contact, all that. But it's great fun. But like, really, you've got to remember the people at the back, and you often can't see them from the stage because there's heavy, hot lights on you. And so you really have to sort of project over.
I think the value for money thing is if you're right in front of the stage, you're getting the real visual close up to the group thing. And the farther you go back, the better the sound becomes, and also the better the effect of the light show.
The light show, right.
So
really, you get whatever you do. If you're right at the front, you can see the people on stage better. If you're right at the back, you get the better effects of the lights and the general overall effect that the people at the front don't. So
you probably get a more unified feeling from the whole 7 members of the group as well. If you're a bit further back, you get a better sound, you get a better lights, and a better picture of the whole group as a unified whole, probably as well. Whereas the people in the front will probably be getting off on, somebody will be standing in front of Jeff and might be really getting off on what Jeff does, and they'll be probably missing out what Richard, the keyboard player's doing, or Mel or something.
I know when Rod Stewart was here, there was a lot. I mean, they had the problem of rain as well, which is and ABBA as well. They were falling all over the stage and flying around. A lot of people complained.
Falling over.
Yeah, one of them boogies who fell down because it was
That's the thing
wet,
about
stuff like that.
Miserable playing outdoor concerts in the rain, and there's also bad danger of getting electrocuted. There's the power that runs the lights and everything is phenomenal, and it's just vast amounts of power there.
I was just
zapped into.
Sorry, I was just interested to know how you felt about rock and roll getting into this sort of monumental area where it becomes a gigantic show.
Isn't it one of those things? I mean, it's a natural progression. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. You can't just go back and say, well, we're only going to play in 3,000-seater places, because if you want to improve your act as you go along and as you get more, the group gets more experiences of being together, things are obviously going to get somewhat bigger, and then eventually you can't play in those places anymore because you just don't fit on. The stages aren't big enough for a start, and especially with a 7-man group, there's a lot of equipment in the first place. So
you don't think it's a function of the amount of money that starts to get involved in it, that because there's so many people need a return from the operation, that it has to pull in more people every time.
That's possible on a business point of view, but I mean on a personal point of view.
Also the fact that there's all those people buying the records, and a great many of them, not all of them, but a great many of them would like to see the band live, because it's a whole other side to the music we do.
I think the main point is whatever the size of the hall or whatever the size of the place we're playing, the band always tries to put on the best possible concert for them. I mean, that's the best you can do, really. And where we play and so on is left up to business management and things like that,
I think we've generally, on the whole, we've satisfied our audiences up till now, and I hope we're going to be able to go on doing that. We haven't yet come up to a stage where we've had a lot of complaints coming back to us or anything, saying, I didn't see any of the show, it's so far away.
Well, you're probably one of the few bands that actually designed your show, Alice Cooper being another one, I think, designed your show specifically for big open-air venues.
So the farther away you are...
Just one other thing, like the new wave in some ways, and the punk rock movement seems in a way a response, a lot of them have been critical of this sort of giganticism that's built into the rock evolution, like Pink Floyd, Rick Wakeman, these kind of evolution, and they've suddenly decided, okay, we want to play to small gigs, dance halls, 200 or 300 people dancing around. Do you think that is a built-in revolution in rock as well, that you keep throwing up that kind of resurgence of the small band doing the local gig?
I don't think much of the music of this. I mean,
that kind of thing's bound to happen anyway. If punk rock took off like incredible, I mean, it took off pretty well. But if it did get to such a state where they should play to 20,000 people, then they played to 20,000 people, and it would become exactly the same.
Especially, I mean, one of the big things about punk rock when it first came out was that the bands spat on the audience spat on the bands, right? But now, like the bigger bands that are getting, good audiences and playing in bigger places,
they can't spit on 20,000.
They're walking off stage because they're getting spat on.
They can't reach.
I mean, they're going back on what they started out to be. They're no longer really punk rock. you know, in it they're playing the same music, if you like, but the idealism behind it, that anybody could do whatever they wanted to anybody else at their shows, is gone. They're walking off because someone's thrown an egg at them. They'd never have done that in the local pub, you know, and yet now they are. So what can you say?
Do you think that different audiences? I mean, do you think people who are interested in your music are also interested in that kind of thing? Is the audience dividing up a bit?
I think audiences have always been divided up in that respect, but I think we're probably towards the opposite ends of the scale, punk rock and ELO. I think one of the things about punk rock is that one of its functions seems to be a lot for people from radio stations and newspapers rather than the audiences. You know, it's like something to write and fling comments backwards and forwards at each other about. You know, it's like a provocative kind of, you know.
Yeah, I think in Australia the reason I ask you is because a lot of people here don't really know what's happening. You know, and as I say, they read about it and hear about it on the radio, and when somebody visits who's involved in the music scene, you feel obliged to ask them because you can get a kind of first-hand reaction to the whole thing.
I've had
a classical background probably.
I saw quite a lot of punk rock bands in LA, the Whiskey. They seem to have punk rock every night there, and I've been really disappointed because, to me, being a performer, it's very obvious to me that these guys are on stage trying to act sort of punks, you know, and they're really not fully behind their act. You know, you can see a big gap between what they're trying to put out to the audience and what they're really feeling inside on stage.
I think it's the bandwagon thing.
It's very much so. Yeah.
You know, the punk rock started off by maybe a couple of bands being dedicated to this thing, and then another band, an ordinary band that wasn't very successful in what they were doing, dive on the bandwagon, stick a pin through the nose and all this stuff, and that's it. And we're a punk rock band. And from there on, like they make more money, so okay. But they still can't go out on stage and be sincere with the music.
But the quality and
this is it.
The quality of the production and the quality of the music of most, not all, punk rock really isn't too good.
And the
Beatles weren't very good when they played in Hamburg.
Okay, well, true. I mean, you can make that criticism, but I mean, you can also make the same criticism about the punk rocks. I mean, you know, from what I've heard in England of the punk rockers over there's maybe one or two good, you know, good songs that are well produced and well played.